It is a scam when you don't allow everyone to operate on fair terms.
We are the Robin Hoods of sports betting. We take something back from the rich bookies and enable our customers to beat them instead.
I think both of these guys are really interesting cases at the moment, because you look at Volkov, and if you take away that Lewis loss, which was just a freak, it was a freak loss. Like, he was dominating the whole fight, and although it was it has to be one of the greatest moments in UFC history, because it was just the best. Like, it's just hilarious watching that knockout. But if you take away that loss, because he was winning that fight, he's only really lost one other fight, and that was to Curtis Blades, and we know how good Curtis Blades is. He's the peak of the peak. So I guess if you take all those away, he's had a pretty impressive run in the UFC so far, Alexander Volkov. And then you can kind of say the same thing about Alistair Overeem in his last 5 fights. So he's only lost in his last 5 fights that one to Rosenstrike, which is in the last couple of seconds. And if he'd survived those last couple of seconds, he too would have won by decision. So you can even make an argument that Overeem's kind of on a 5-fight win streak, which is another, same as Edgar, so impressive for someone of his age to be hanging around, and especially he's off the old horse juice and he's still going. So the man is on fire. I'll get up the odds here for everyone before you share your thoughts, but you can get Overeem at about 157. Oh, sorry, Volkov at 157, and best odds I can see here for Overeem 2.6 on William Hill. You can get a little bit lower than that on the exchanges. My first question to you, mate, was: Do you think Overeem will use his wrestling? 1, and 2, do you think he would be able to take Volkov down to the ground?
So, later on in Overeem's career, we have seen him use his wrestling a lot more, and it makes a lot of sense. He's not as explosive as he used to be. Obviously, his chin's always, he's never had a granite chin, and he's been using it more and more. And in that Rosenstrike fight, he was using it really effectively. We saw him in his last fight against Sakai use it really effectively. So I think he will try and use it, but I think Volkov's got pretty decent takedown defense now. Early on in his career, I remember when he was at Bellator, he wasn't as heavily muscled. He wasn't as strong. He was a bit like Struve. He was a bit of a beanpole, and you could see guys just kind of push him against the cage and be able to control him and grind out wins that way. But since he's come into the UFC, he's obviously worked on his strength and conditioning, and physically he looks really strong now. So I was watching that Blades fight, and Blades is, at least, he's the strong. Well, yeah, he's probably the best wrestler in the heavyweight division now that Cormier is out there, and he's certainly the physically the strongest wrestler. So he was able to get him down, but he's just got that pure explosive double leg. And Overeem doesn't have that type of wrestling. He's pretty good in the clinch. He's got decent clinch trips, but Volkov's also pretty decent in the clinch, and I think he'll also negate Overeem's knees as well. Sorry, I'm tired, mate. I think he'll negate Overeem's knees just with his size. It's going to be hard for Overeem to land them solid knees. He's got to obviously go up a lot higher, so he can't get the same power and torque that he normally gets with those devastating knees. So when I looked at this fight initially, I thought it'd be better Overeem, but then when I looked into it more, I don't think his wrestling is going to be effective enough to get Volkov down. And then I give Volkov the cardio advantage. I give him, he's got the better chin at this point. In terms of striking, I think his output's a lot better. Overeem tends to fight in bursts. Now it kind of takes a bit of time off in fights. You saw him against Sakai, and you've seen it previously. He kind of just covers up and lets him come at him for a bit. And he just shells up, and then he'll burst out. And then if he can't get that wrestling going and he can't land the takedowns, then I think Volkov's just going to wear on him and probably stop him in the 4th or 5th round, or possibly even earlier. So I quite like Volkov, but then it's heavyweights, and obviously we saw him get cracked by Lewis, so we know that he can be cracked. And sometimes he does get into exchanges that he doesn't need to as well. He seems to kind of stay in the pocket and not use his reach as well as he should do. But I do favour him, but I'm not sure if I want to back him at 1.57. But equally, I don't think Overeem's got good enough wrestling either to kind of back him either. So for me, I was kind of struggling with this fight to find something to bet on, to be honest. And like with betting, as you'll know, and as anyone that kind of does it profitably and seriously, you can't force bets if they're not there. So.
No, of course, mate. But the stand-up side of the fight, I assume you're leaning with Volkov. But do you think it will be like kind of a cagey affair? Like, it doesn't strike me as a fight where they're going to go hammer and tongs, and search for that big KO win. Like, they're both kind of they're both pretty tactical on the feet. So do you think there's a chance that they could kind of stay at range for, maybe the first 2 rounds, and then things will open up a bit more from then as they get a bit more tired and sloppy?
Yeah, possibly. Like Overeem, since, like you mentioned earlier, since he came off the crocodile meat or whatever he was taking, he's had.
Mate, I haven't heard that before.
Apparently, that's what it was. I remember back in the day, I
thought it was horses.
I was researching his diet. I wanted to get that Overeem look, and yeah, he said the crocodile meat. But
Did you give it a go, mate?
I have eaten crocodile when I was in Thailand, but not since then. So no. But yeah, since obviously he's come off that, and he's had to fight a lot more strategically. I suppose he just used to kind of power into guys, didn't he, and just kind of beat guys through brute force. But yeah, he's had to adapt his style, use kind of his range and his distance and kind of his IQ, I suppose, and his timing of striking. But Volkov's a hard guy to. It's a hard guy to hit, isn't he? He's got that massive reach advantage. Like I say, Overeem seems to kind of fight in bursts. I'm not saying Overeem can't knock him out. Obviously, it's heavyweight and he could do, but I just kind of favour Volkov. And I do think if Overeem can't get them trips, then he's going to tire. But I do think it could be quite tentative early on. I think you're right. I think both guys will be kind of, trying to find the timing and trying to kind of judge the distance and the range. And you're probably right. I'll be flicking out, jabs, and maybe, Volkov will do that front kick, and you probably see Reem circling quite a lot as well.
Yeah, okay. And I'm just looking at the markets here, because one of the things I did look at was the fight going the distance. Yes, or the fight to go the distance is that you can get 4s at Skybet, 3.75 and a few other places. So if it is kind of a tactical battle and they do kind of try and keep each other on the outside and outstrike each other, then then that might be a play. But, like you said, mate, it's just one of those things like Overeem, you just can't really trust his chin. Like, just take the Rosenstrike fight. The bloke was dominating the whole fight. He was about to win by decision, and he gets clipped, and it's all over. So it's like, maybe the 4s really isn't worth it. Maybe you could even look at the round betting, like for it to finish in round 4 or 5. I think you mentioned that before. So Volkov, round 3, 4, and 5, you can get 11s for round 3. You can get 15 for round 4, and round 5 you can get 26 at Paddy Power. So I'll just get those up on the screen now for people to have a look at. But I mean, if you're desperate, if you really want to have a bet on the fight, then maybe, flicking a few dollars to those speculator markets there. Any thoughts on that?
I mean, yeah, if you just want a fun bet, like, you just want to kind of have something to cheer on, then I don't mind that. Like I say, I have had a look over this, and I just couldn't really find anything that just, screamed that it was value to me. So, I mean, even in play, I suppose in play, if like Overeem's able to land takedowns early, Volkov's not bad off his back, and if you can get Volkov at so you can get Volkov above evens after round 1, if Reem's managed to take him down and stay on top, I think that'd probably be a pretty decent bet as well, because we've seen Volkov's ability to, go 5 rounds with blades, and later on in that fight he was stuffing blades takedowns as well. So, yeah, that might be kind of something to look at possibly.
Yeah, I think that's the great thing about MMA, isn't it? That, like, if you're not 100% sure on a play pre-match, like, there are so many opportunities live that you can exploit. If you have a sufficient knowledge of MMA, there are lots of opportunities that can pop up, and the liquidity is not all too bad nowadays. I think it's, I mean, even in the last 6 months to a year, like, I think I've seen the liquidity kind of grow recently. So Yeah, I think overall, like COVID's probably helped out the UFC a lot more people watching and interested. So that's always going to help out the liquidity. So yeah, betting live in the UFC or MMA as opposed to something like soccer or football, whatever you want to call it, it's probably a bit less efficient. Would you say, or you definitely?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's quite high pressure for the people that have to set them odds, really, because they don't have time to check what everyone else is doing, so they kind of just have to come up with something, don't they? And I imagine they got like algorithms and stuff like that. But obviously, when you're watching a fight, you need someone who's watching that, and then you've got arbors coming in either side and taking prices. So yeah, I imagine it's quite high pressure. So yeah, they do sometimes make some massive errors, and it's if you're into MMA and you've got decent knowledge, then it can be a good way of making some money.